Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Better, where we have conversations with founders and leaders who are building great products and businesses. I am Jayveer and today I'm excited to be joined by Jonathan Pipek, a product marketing consultant, mentor, recruiter, and founder who has spent years helping B2B SaaS companies build a stronger go-to-market strategy and product marketing functions. Jonathan is the founder and a principal product marketing consultant at Blue Manta Consulting and a co-founder and a partner at 3M Recruiting. Jonathan, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, to begin with, could you please tell us about yourself and your journey into product marketing and your vision for the Blue Manta Consulting?
Yeah, absolutely. Spent over a decade in product marketing, working across pretty much every company size, from early stage startups to Fortune 500s and everything in between. Along the way, I realized, I really wanted a little bit more variety. So about 3.5 years ago, I started Blue Manta Consulting, which is a product marketing agency. We work with B2B SaaS companies in North America and Europe, really helping them scale. We primarily target, companies between 50 and 250 million in ARR. So that was kind of the first thing I did after being in-house for over a decade. And then last year, started getting a lot of requests for companies to help them hire product marketers, more for full-time roles. And so, I reached out to one of my friends, which is Elin Pei, a really well-known product marketing coach out of New York City. And we started 3M Recruiting, which is a recruiting company. We exclusively place product marketers at early stage startups. So think, B2B SaaS startups between like seed and Series B. So yeah, that's basically how it all started.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you have helped many B2B SaaS companies build a product marketing from the ground up. What does the top class product marketing functions look like today?
Ooh, that's a good question. It really varies. I think there's a lot of ways to answer that. What I would probably say is one is owning the narrative. Um, it's a narrative that defines, the company defines the products, that is always evolving and always changing. I think that's a big part. The other one is being really embedded in the roadmap and go-to-market conversations at an early point. So you're literally setting the company strategy and the product roadmap with product and with C-suite and with company leaders. The other part I'd say is I think the best product marketing teams really think about prioritization and sequencing. Like they know what has to happen in what order uh, before they scale. So they put in, like, for example, they put in a process or a framework, and then they use that to scale, especially as you get larger and larger. And then the last one I would say is you shift from what I call firefighting mode or being really reactive to more strategic. So you're deciding, again, you're part of the conversation where you're deciding what's going to happen next for the company versus just kind of responding to the business. So I think those are the key things I would say separates like a world-class product marketing function from, a standard one.
I really like that perspective. And suppose, for example, if you joined a SaaS company tomorrow and had to build a like it's a product marketing functions from zero. Okay, what would you do, or what would you build first? And what about you deliberately avoid doing early on?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think I would start with first just like kind of evaluating what exists, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I usually think about that in terms of who are they targeting, right? So in other words, what's their ICP and who are their personas, right? Their buyer persona, their champion, so on and so forth. Then I would start thinking about, what are they telling those personas and those ICPs? Are they, is their position messaging solid? Is it differentiated against their competitors, so on and so forth? I would think about how they reach those prospects. So what channels are they using to reach them? Are they going through events? Are they going through paid ads? Are they going through, one-to-one outreach, so on and so forth? And then when they do reach those prospects, what do the sales reps say, right? What do the BDRs say or the AEs say? What's the pitch deck look like? What's their outreach look like, so on and so forth? And then the last thing I'd like to evaluate is kind of, what do they actually offer them? So in other words, what are the pricing and packaging? What are their offers? I think that's a really good way to start. So I start by doing kind of that analysis or that assessment, and then I look at kind of where the big buckets or where the big gaps are. So, is it top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel? Are they having a hard time with folks even knowing about them or reaching out to folks? Are they having a hard time getting those folks interested when they do reach out? Or is it more about a conversion problem where they can't get them to close? Or is it post sale altogether, right? Is it more of a churn problem, a renewal and an expansion problem? So I start to basically with that evaluation, then I start to narrow in where the gaps, the biggest gap exists within the sales process or post sale. And then I start thinking about, okay, how do we start building a strategy and a product marketing function that can fill those gaps and support the businesses today and where the business is going to be in the next 12 to 18 months.
What are the biggest positioning and messaging mistakes you see B2B SaaS companies make today?
Ooh, where do I start? There's so many. I think that I'll focus on two. I think,
Mhm.
or maybe three. The most obvious one is, and founders love to do this, is where they want to be everything to everyone, right? It's kind of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Their product is so powerful. They know it has so many use cases, so many outcomes it can solve, or it can deliver, so many problems it can solve that they want to just market it for to everyone. So from a position and messaging standpoint, it's basically like, oh, we can do anything, which of course doesn't land. So that's kind of the most common one. The other one I would say is on the opposite end where the positioning or messaging is very unclear or very vague. So, and I see this in kind of two ways. So one is the company that focuses so much on benefits and outcomes that you don't know what the product actually does, right? That's a very popular one. And then the opposite is also true, where they focus so much on the features, on the functionality of the product, where you clearly understand what the product does, but you don't really understand what the benefits are.
Hmm.
So I think both of those can be equally bad in different ways.
And how should founders think about their product differently as AI continues to reshape customer expectations?
That's a good question. When it comes to AI, like AI is making a huge impact in pretty much everything, right? But when the way founders need to think about it in relation to their products, right, and customer expectations, I think isn't something that's talked about a lot. Um, what I would think about is personalization. So customers don't want kind of a one size fits all approach anymore, or one size fits all onboarding, or one size fits all product, et cetera. They really want it to be personalized to their needs. And then the other thing they expect now, because AI has made things so much easier, right, and given so much more control and power to the average person, they really want the ability to customize. So what I mean by that is like customers want to be able to change the product themselves versus relying on product updates that may or may not ever happen. And so I think those are the two big things that I would recommend founders think about is as they build these products, how can we personalize the experience to the customer themselves? And then how do we give them the power to customize the experience, not just the experience, sorry, but customize the product to their needs?
And building on that, as AI is changing almost every aspect of marketing, like for content or for automations. So, how do you see AI is transforming product marketing and GTM strategies?
It's a big question. Of course, product marketing is going to start doing more and more with less headcount. That's already happening. I think it's going to accelerate. Um, But I think it's going to change in the sense that we're not just going to be moving faster, but we're going to be building a lot more on our own. Again, this is already happening, right? We're seeing, on my end, for example, back in the day, maybe 3, 4 years ago, I would have worked with a demand gen or a web developer to create landing pages. Um, Now we create them ourselves. Or,
Hmm.
a few years ago, we would have spent tens of thousands and it would have spent months building ROI calculators. Now we can build them in Replit or Lovable in
Right.
a few hours. And so
Hmm.
I think what we're seeing is I think we're seeing a lot of um, activities that were previously owned by other teams or that were previously big roadblocks. I think those are going away. So that's one big change. I think the other big change is we're not just doing more, we're doing more of the strategic work that matters. So, a lot of the analysis, a lot of the busy work, a lot of the um, you know, non-valuable or low ROI work is being automated. So rather than spending hours and hours and hours editing the deck, now I can automate that through Cloud Design. Or rather than spending hours analyzing win-loss analysis interviews, I can throw that into Notebook LM and have it do the analysis for me. There still need to be guardrails in terms of, as a product marketer, you need to tell Notebook LM what you want to get out of that analysis, what questions you're looking to answer, so on and so forth. Like, it's not just, let AI do the thinking, but the actual analysis part, if you give it guardrails, you can automate a lot of that. So I think in the next few years, we're going to see even larger uh, shift that way. And I think product marketing is going to have a reckoning where they're going to have to decide, what aspects of product marketing can we automate and hopefully, speed up, and what parts do we really want to focus on and really want to hold on to.
For product marketing, which part you think human interaction is most important and AI cannot change that?
Uh, I mean, maybe a cliche answer, but positioning. Making decisions for a company in terms of who they're going to target, how they differentiate, how they stack up against the competitors, what value they deliver, etc. Like, you never want to outsource that to AI, because AI is going to give you, one, it doesn't do well with making decisions, but two, AI is not going to give you the strategic decision that's based on your intuition, your understanding of the market, your understanding of customers, your understanding of the product. And the thing is, if other companies that are very similar to yours put in very similar inputs, they're going to get a very similar positioning. So the outputs are going to be very similar. And so it's not going to be differentiated, and it's not going to show the true value of your company. I think if you want to automate one pagers, if you want to automate analysis, if you want to automate, aspects of sales enablement, aspects of surveys, of research, go for it. But actually talking to customers, actually just making the big decisions for your company in terms of positioning and messaging, I wouldn't recommend those be automated at all.
And staying on that, what are the top three skills today's product marketer must have?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it varies a lot. I think when we're recruiting product marketers, we're really looking for a few things. We're looking for, one, like flexibility. As we know, things are moving faster than ever with AI. It's a cliche, but it's true. And so having the ability to be flexible and pivot is really, really important. Along with that, emotional intelligence and cross-functional leadership, right? We need to manage up more than ever, not just our direct managers or other leaders, but C-suite as well. And being able to rally folks and get buy-in is really important. And then the other part of AI, so like, of course, we have to have AI chops and be really good at using AI in day to day. But the other part of that is storytelling has become even more important, because everyone's story is almost the same. It's like, hey, you can do pretty much anything with our product because we use AI. It's so wonderful, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't resonate anymore. That doesn't differentiate you. It's sort of like when people said, oh, it's on the internet, back in the day, like, yes, of course, or later, it's on the cloud. Like, if you were the first 2 or 3 companies that did that, great. Once you were number 560, it was kind of a given that you were on the cloud, right? And so we're reaching a similar point with AI where, yes, you're using AI, that's great, but you really need to tell a compelling story. And so that's become one of the top skills for product marketing. It always was, but it's even more important than before.
That's awesome, and that's a great insight. And you have mentored product marketers across hundreds of companies. What separates the team that scales successful from those that struggle?
Yeah, so for scaling, you're really looking for going beyond one person and going beyond one team. And so the big part that matters there is developing standardized processes that aren't super rigid, right? They need to be flexible because things change, but developing kind of an underlying foundation that can be used to scale. So that's number one. Number two is probably cross-functional relationships. So what I see a lot in the product marketing teams that don't scale is, let's say you have one person, let's say yourself, right? Jayveer, you have a wonderful relationship across the org with all these different key stakeholders, and that's great. But in order to scale a function, right, in order to scale the company, that needs to be true for all of product marketing. And so having those cross-functional relationships across the team and across the company is really important. The other part is, what I see a lot is, rather than saying, hey, this is our process and let's be flexible, it's not just that, it's let's actually have the curiosity to periodically reassess the process that we've put in place, to iterate on it and to improve on it. Because just because you put something in place, let's say well, I'll give you real examples, right? So like at 50 million ARR, you put in a product launch process that makes a ton of sense. Now you're at 100 million, but now you're AI native, which means you're shipping products, I don't know, every week, every 2 weeks, versus before you would ship products maybe once a month or once every 2 months. And so your process needs to change. And so having the curiosity and the initiative to periodically reassess and change your processes, I think is huge for scaling a company. And then the last one is C-suite buy-in. So as you're scaling, right, you're going from 50 to 250 million ARR, 250 to 500, you need to have C-suite buy-in throughout the entire process because things are going to change and you're going to need their buy-in and their support in order to adapt to those changes and make changes to processes that were agreed on. So it's not good enough to say, hey, we have this process that's standardized, C-suite's an agreement, everyone's on board. You also need to have C-suite agreement when it is time to reevaluate and reassess that process. Um, or maybe a relationship is strained, or new people are onboarded to the company. Like, you need to have C-suite buy-in in order to adapt to those changes and weather the storm and grow and scale.
What do you think? Like, what are the top three metrics which should measure for the product marketer?
So what top three metrics matter most for product marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that varies depending on a few different factors, but high level, I would say win rate is really important, right? So if you're at a sales-led organization, even if
Mhm.
you're at a PLG, but especially at a sales-led organization, one of your top responsibilities as a product marketer is not just to attract the right folks to come in, but also to help the
Mhm.
sales team close deals. And so if your win rate is high, that shows, or industry standard or higher, that shows that you're doing your job, you're enabling the sales team, you're training them on the product, you're training them on customers, you have a good pitch deck, you have good pricing and packaging, you're differentiated compared to the competitors, so on and so forth. And so win rate's a really good place to start. Um, Apart from that, I think you can look at the strength of your position messaging, which I would say is a pretty tough thing to analyze from a metric standpoint. But what you can do is, come up with numeric qualifiers, like quantitative qualifiers that explain how uniquely differentiated it is in a few different areas, and compare it to your competition. And so even if it's artificial, at least you have an understanding of how differentiated it is, how much it resonates, so on and so forth. And then the other thing I would say is sales cycle length. There's a lot of things product marketing can do to improve sales cycle length. And so having the ability to work really closely with sales, think about how to speed up different processes, whether it's getting the right stakeholders in the room, whether it's countering objections early, whether it's having kind of objection handling sooner, so on and so forth. Those are the things where product marketing can really make an impact. So I would say, the things that tie to revenue are really important. And then the last one I'll mention is pipeline generation. So working really closely with demand generation on marketing campaigns and ensuring that you're supporting them with the right ICP, personas, key messaging points, key
Mm.
channels, so on and so forth, that you've gleaned through your research, through your customer research and market research. That way you have generated pipeline for the company. That's also really important.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson. So, following on that, if you had only 30 minutes to interview a product marketer candidate, and what would you ask to quickly understand whether they actually have a strong PMM instincts or not?
Yeah, so a lot of it would depend on the role itself. So, a role that's selling to, or that's marketing to enterprise B2B SaaS companies, or sorry, that's selling enterprise B2B SaaS software is very different than a company that's selling software to a, early stage startup or to SMBs. It's also different if they're selling internationally versus US. It's different whether they're selling one product or selling a portfolio of products. It's different whether they're PLG or SLG, specific industry nuances, so on and so forth. So there's a lot to evaluate. It really comes down to what does the role specifically need. Having said that, I like to focus on a few key areas, generally speaking. So position messaging is number one, cross-functional relationships number two. I think those two are really, really key in any role, regardless of the factors I mentioned before. You always need to be good at position messaging and storytelling and be able to quickly distill what is your strategy as a company, and then also how are you going to tell customers about your product, right? That's imperative no matter what. And then number two, cross-functional relationships and influencing without authority. If you don't have that, as a product marketer, you can't succeed. So I think those are the two big ones that I always focus on, no matter what. And then apart from that, I really look for uh, intellectual curiosity and customer centricity. So what I mean by that is everyone says they're intellectual curious and they say they really care about customers, but I'm interested in the person who I don't know, went to a conference and spent 3 hours at a happy hour talking to a customer about their pain points, or someone who's so curious that they actually signed up for the product sandbox themselves and spent a few hours using it and realized, hey, here are the key issues in the customer experience that we need to solve. Or they went through
Mm-hmm.
onboarding and they realized, hey, the onboarding process actually isn't very smooth, right? So those are the things I'm looking for because I know those folks, those product marketers are always going to be um, really, really close to the customer journey, and they're going to be really close to the product and how to improve it.
And what does a great partnership between product marketing, sales, and customers look like? And where do you mostly commonly see these teams break down? And what can PMM do to bring them back into alignment?
Uh, so with product marketing, sales, and customer success, right? That's kind of your key team that you work with for pretty much everything in a company. So I think the big starting point is having a shared understanding and a shared agreement on what's true about the market and the customer. So, we agree that this is how we're positioning, that this is how we stack up against competitors, that this is what customers look for, and these are the problems we solve for customers. So just having that shared agreement is a really important place to start. The second thing is ensuring that across those four teams, positioning and ICP are a shared source of truth. So every team is using that to build off of. They're not just, saying, oh, yeah, marketing sent me this random thing or product marketing sent me this random thing. I'm not going to look at it, but actually using positioning and ICP as a shared source of truth. So to give an example, the sales team is actually going after who we say our ICP is. Customer success, when they talk about the future of the company or they're doing a renewal conversation, they use the positioning in that conversation. You know, Product, when they think about what do I build next, they use the positioning to guide the roadmap, so on and so forth on the ICP. The other part is you really want a feedback loop. So sales and customer success are constantly giving you feedback from customers. They're looping you into conversations that are really important. And they're not just looping in product, but also product marketing, like both. So we have kind of that source of truth that continuously updates. It's not just a renewal conversation. It's not just something that we find out when things go wrong, but it's literally constantly we're getting feedback from customers and from prospects. And then the last thing I would say is just continuity in terms of the story that customers and prospects hear. So regardless of whether a prospect is talking to a sales rep or a BDR, or maybe they become a customer and they get a product update, or maybe they're having a conversation with the customer success team or the support team, the story they hear is consistently the same. This is the problem we solve. This is who we serve. This is how we talk about our product. If that's consistent across all of them, then I think you're really in a good spot.
And for product marketing for any SaaS product, and when it comes to SEO, AEO, GEO, so how should we approach these things for our product?
I think it's an evolving science, right? I think working with a vendor that really understands AEO is a good place to start. But
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen is kind of continuously true for all of these, whether it's SEO, AEO, or GEO, et cetera, is that it really comes back to fundamentals of being in the channels where you're like a few things. One, being in the channels where your customers are, right? So if your customers are on Reddit, be on Reddit. If they're on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn. Continuously
Mm-hmm.
post good information on those. Two
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of objection handling and a lot of FAQs that you usually do become really, really critical. So having
Mm-hmm.
that on your website, having that on your marketplace pages, having that on various sources, going
Mm-hmm.
in depth and really, really thinking about the questions that folks have and answering that in blogs, answering that on different sites. Basically, providing the information that these LLMs look for when they start searching, when customers or prospects start searching for more information. That's become critical. And then finally, like auditing these LLMs and seeing, okay, this is the information it pulls back about my company. Is it accurate? And if it's not, go look at the sources and see if you have control over the sources and you can update that. And if not,
Hmm.
working with whoever owns the sources to try to change, the incorrect or inaccurate information. Um, at the end of the day, like working with a vendor that is a specialist in this area is probably a best practice. They're going to be able to tell you, uh, what changes you need to make and what you can control versus what you can't.
And looking ahead, what trends in AI, product marketing, and B2B SaaS are you most excited about?
I'm really excited about specialization. Like right now, I think AI has been so focused on LLMs, right? Large
Hmm.
language models. And those are great, but they're not great at everything. And so I'm excited for more specific types of AI to come out, that are, and there's already quite a few, but just more to be developed that are really, really focused on one use case. So being the best design AI out there, being the best tool for research or the best tool for analysis and synthesis of data, so on and so forth. Because I think right now we're using kind of a Swiss Army knife, which is great. Like it's good at most things, but it would be great to get to more specialization, um, and AI tools that are specifically built for one purpose. That way we can have the best outcome versus a good enough outcome. Like doing competitor research with an LLM is terrible, right? That's kind of the classic case from product marketing lens. You do competitor research with AI, and it hallucinates half of the things, half of the facts it gives you. When you click on the sources, the facts don't exist there. It misunderstands what competitors do. It misunderstands how you stack up to competitors, how they differentiate. It'll make up pricing. It'll make up product features, so on and so forth. And so it's really, really tough to do competitor research with AI with LLMs today. And so having more differentiated, or sorry, more uniquely focused AI tools will be huge. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a big a big upgrade for all of us.
Okay, and staying on that, what are the top three AI tools you recommend for the product marketing apart from ChatGPT and Claude?
Wow, what a great question. There's a lot. It just depends on kind of what the use case is. So, GetWise, if you're at a Fortune 500 or a large organization, GetWise is a really good tool for product research. It automates a lot of, it's based on human research, but with AI layered on top. So it automates a lot of the research you would normally do and makes it a lot faster. So that's a really good tool to use. Uh, Apart from that, there's a few AEO tools that I think are really, really critical that you need to partner not just with content marketing and demand gen, but with product on and really understand what are the best ways to incorporate that. What else? The other one I'll throw out there, and I'm not I'm not loyal to either one, but Lovable Replit. If you're not using Lovable
Hmm.
Replit as a product marketer, you really need to. It's just so much easier to create pretty much anything yourself. ROI calculators are the ones that come up a lot for us. Just the ability to create an ROI calculator and Lovable without needing to
Hmm.
talk to a dev is absolutely huge. And then you can just share the code with the web dev, and they can add it to the website, or they can create you can create a landing page yourself. So having the ability to use Lovable and Replit in day to day is absolutely critical. Highly, highly, highly recommend to all product marketers.
What are the tools you can recommend for the building strategy and for the go-to-market strategy?
I don't necessarily use AI tools for building go-to-market strategy. I think that's something that I, rely
Hmm.
more on kind of traditional approaches to. But I think there's a lot of foundational tools. There's a tool I'm blinking on their name right now, but that helps you see where your audience is, where your audience lives. So you basically describe the type of audience you're looking for, and it literally finds the channels that they're on. I think that's a
Hmm.
really helpful tool for thinking through what channels to market to. Um, Beyond that, I mean, you can use LLMs not for competitive deep dive analysis, but for just staying up to date with what they're doing. I found that helpful to be helpful. Um,
Okay, that's great insights. And how important is psychology in a product marketing when customer choose between two similar products? What do you think actually influences the final decision?
yeah, I mean, psychology is definitely important in all marketing, not just product marketing. We have a lot of stats that show that sales, yes, are influenced by the quality of the product, but a lot of it is influenced by how much they like the sales rep, what their overall experience is with the company, you know, pricing packaging is always important too, how well they feel understood, so on and so forth. So psychology plays a big role. I think it's something that marketing and sales need to be aware of and need to optimize for as much as possible. Uh, I don't think that's changed necessarily with AI, but I think the I guess the one part that has changed is the way people discover tools is a little bit different, right? So the psychology is if you're
Hmm.
recommended in ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or Claude or whatever tool they're using to discover or to get answers for their specific problem, the psychology is that they automatically trust what's recommended by AI. Now, people still do due diligence, but there's always a sense of trust, kind of similar to when you Googled something in the first, one or two pages, you had results, you automatically thought that those were better than, a source on page 15 or 20. Or you didn't even go to page 15 or 20. And so I think from a psychology standpoint, I think everyone's hyper aware of that and understanding that you really need to ideally show up in those results. So that's been a definitely a big change recently.
Okay, that's a great insights. And looking back across your career, what is the one lesson that fundamentally changed the way you think about product marketing and business?
I think the big lesson for me was that what you think is going to happen is not always right. Oftentimes it's actually not even remotely right. And so
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think early on in my product marketing career, I think I was more inclined to making big bets and seeing how they went.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I would say, hey, here's the new position messaging, like let's roll it out and see how it goes. And I think very soon, my career, very early in my career, I hit roadblocks and I would say, oh, this position messaging isn't landing with sales, or, customers don't like it, prospects don't like it, so on and so forth. And I would iterate and iterate, and we'd eventually get to the right thing. But that process was really painful. And so what I learned from a go-to-market standpoint is to do a lot of testing, a lot of experimentation, a lot of iteration. And so rather than rolling it out to the entire sales rep, the entire sales force, I would just roll it out to one or two sales reps. Number one. Number two, that's number two. Number one, I would co-develop it with the sales team, right? I would ground it in customer research. So I think the big lesson for me was rather than going out and, launching day one, which again made a lot more sense 15 years ago. Um, Now I think any product marketer would say, "Oh, that's silly," but 15 years ago, that's kind of how product marketing was done to an extent, right? Not all the time, but uh, and so just transitioning more towards, hey, let's experiment, let's test things, let's use pilots and controlled betas and our customer advisory board, so on and so forth, to test and iterate and get feedback. Very similar to how demand gen does, testing, A/B testing with an email subject line, so on and so forth. That's become a really key component of kind of how I work. Or, if you're entering a new market, we don't just bet on this is the direction. It's like, hey, let's run some tests. Let's test the ICP. So I was working with a company that was entering the US market for the first time. So we worked with their demand gen team and with their agency to actually test the ICP. We had a hypothesis that it was one of two. It was either states that had, certain regulations in place or states that didn't. And we ran the A/B testing and we realized it actually didn't matter. And so it changed our ICP. It removed a piece of a big characteristic that we thought was important. It removed it because the testing showed it actually didn't matter. So I think that's the key learning for me is like before you make a big move, test it out, iterate, take it as bite-sized as you can.
And staying on that, you have spent more than a decade in a product marketing. So, what is the best channel had worked for you from email marketing, social marketing, and from other marketing channels? What is the best? What channel has given you the best ROI for your B2B SaaS product?
Yeah, so I mean, the short answer is it varies. It varies a lot on industry and the type of persona. In terms of ROI, though, it's really hard to beat email marketing just
Mm-hmm.
because the cost is so low and the ROI can be huge. Social media marketing tends to be more expensive, events even more expensive, so on and so forth. I'll say, it varied tremendously on industry and buyer. So at one company, events were our biggest, lead generation tool. We would meet people at events. So they first got into our database through events. And then
Mm-hmm.
they would also convert at events. So either by actually doing the demo literally at the event, or
Mm.
signing up for a demo later, again, also at the event. So events were really
Mm.
big. At another company I worked at, it was all point of sale. So it was a B2B2C product. So the B2B sales, right, to like the actual partners, the Fortune 500s that we partnered with, that was all done through business development at C-suite level. So literally C-suite got all those. And then for the B2C, like B2B2C part, that was all done in store through sales. So it was all
Mm-hmm.
in-person retail sales. So, it varied tremendously. I worked at another company where um, we did everything through sales reps. We also
Mm-hmm.
had a PLG motion. So for mid market and enterprise, it was all sales reps, and then for SMBs, it was all PLG. And so for PLG, email marketing and social media marketing worked the best, and then for mid market and enterprise, it was really uh, advertising was big, and then direct one-to-one outreach from SDRs and AEs, and then events. So it really just
Mm.
depends on the specific
Right. Mm.
company situation.
Agree on that. And if you could go back to the beginning of your career and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oof, going back to early days.
Or maybe what one piece of advice you would give to aspiring product marketers who want to build or who want to make their career into this field in AI era?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I would say is really hone your emotional intelligence. I don't think that's something that's really taught in school. I don't think it's taught in life at any point. Some people just get luckier with who their family is or who their bosses are or who their coworkers are, and they learn it on the job. But I think being really intentional, you can do that in a few ways. One, Marshall Goldsmith is kind of the gold standard when it comes to executive coaching. So reading some of his books is a good place to start. Uh, that's number one. Number two, really observing people at your company or in your life who are really successful at maintaining relationships or building relationships with other people. So if there's a C-suite member that everyone likes and they get things done, think about what are the things that they say or do. Maybe you've noticed, hey, they're really nice to gatekeepers, right? So they work really well with, executive admins or with folks who are not as senior as them. Or, hey, they always ask for opinions from everyone, whether it's a BDR that started yesterday to a sales VP that's been here for 10 years. Or maybe they really think about underlying impacts. So they think about, hey, we're going to do XYZ. Maybe it's a product update. Oh, hey, let's talk to the head of customer success and customer support to see how is this going to impact them. Do we need to stagger this rollout? So it's being mindful or considerate of other teams. So I think combining that formal education in terms of like the books and Marshall Goldsmith's teachings,
Hmm.
plus evaluating or not evaluating, but analyzing, kind of what successful folks in your life do, whether that's personal or private, in terms of how they maintain relationships, how they build buy-in, so on and so forth. Um, and if you've ever had a great manager, think back to what are the things that they did that made you feel respected, that made you feel safe, like psychologically safe, so you could tell them things, that made you feel supported, and that made you feel, like uh, like they had your back. When you made a mistake, how did they react? What did you like? What did you not like? So again, it's really being intentional about developing your emotional intelligence, because it's so critical for cross-functional relationship building
Hmm.
and cross-functional
Right.
leadership. And it's something
Hmm.
you need, regardless of whether or not you go into product marketing. It's something you need in any role, but for product marketing, it's just absolutely imperative.
Yeah, I love that perspective, and it's a great insight and realistic learning. So, like, Grow Better is about continuous growth and both professionally and personally. What does it Grow Better mean to you when you hear about this?
I mean, to me, it's not resting on your laurels, not staying complacent, not stagnating, right? It's always iterating, always learning. The best, absolute best leaders I've ever worked with, whether they were CEOs at large companies or founders at early stage companies or CMOs, CPOs, etc., they all had a really deep curiosity, not just about learning from their customers or their prospects, not just learning about the market and competitors, but just learning in general. Um, they were always super humble. I had a CEO who stopped an entire meeting because someone who had just joined 2 weeks ago had an idea, and another leader, I don't remember who the other leader was, basically ignored them. And the CEO said, "Hold on, I want to hear what this person has to say." And that to me
Hmm.
was a huge moment in terms of setting culture for the company, right? Uh, but that's a CEO that's super successful because the way they thought about success was, we're all in this together. Everyone has their own strengths, their own weaknesses. Everyone has their own
Hmm.
insight, and so let's take advantage of that and learn,
Hmm.
versus saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is my perspective. Let's go with it." And so we were able to do much more creative things with that CEO at that company. We were able to host different kinds of events that we would have never gotten at other companies. We were able to push the boundaries when it came to creative, and the approach we took, how funny it was or how out there it was. Um, so those are the kind of things where, when I think about grow better, I think about, how do you grow in a way that pushes uh, your current self, and you become a better version of yourself.
Yeah, Jonathan, this has been an incredible conversation, and thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your insights and experience.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
If you have watched this video till the end, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. And if there is any specific question you would like to ask founders and leaders about product marketing, tech, SaaS, growth, and AI, please let me know in the comment section. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.